Shalom, I'm back. This is the chapter 6, Dark Days. This is part of the Destroyer with the Colburn Bible. I'll read 3 pages, then come back and do a second part. The Dark Days began with the last visitation of the Destroyer, and they were foretold by strange omens. In the skies, all men were silent and went about with pale faces. The leaders of the slaves, which had built a city to the glory of Thom, stirred up unrest, and no man raised his arm against them. They foretold of great events, of which people were ignorant and of which the temple seers were not informed. The same way it's happening now. You tell them something, they don't want to hear it. These were the days of the ominous calm, when people waited for they knew not what. Like I said, what's going on right now. The presence of the unseen doom was felt. Like I said, what's going on now, they know something's about to happen, but they just don't know because they don't want to listen. They think they know everything. The hearts of men were stricken. Laughter was heard no more, and grief and wailing sounds throughout the land. Even the voices of children were still, and they did not play together, but stood silent. The slaves became bold and insolent, and women were the possession of any man. Fear walked the land, and women became barren with terror, and they could not conceive, and those with child aborted. All men closed up within themselves. The days of stillness were followed by the time when the noise of trumpeting and shrilling was heard. You hear that now, the trumpets in the heavens. You see videos with that. In the heavens, and the people became as frightened as beasts without the herdsmen, and asses when lions prowl without their fold. The people spoke of the God of the slaves, and reckless men said, if we knew where these gods were to be found, we would have sacrificed to him. But the God of the slaves was not among them. He was not to be found within the swamplands or the brick pits. His manifestation was the heavens for all men to see. But they did not see with understanding, nor would any God listen. For all were dumb because of the hypocrisy of men. The dead were no longer sacred and were thrown into the waters. Those already entombed were neglected, and many became exposed. They lay unprotected against the hands of the thieves. He who was once toiled long in the sun, bearing the yoke of himself, now possessed oxen. He who grew no grain now owned the storehouse full. He who once dwelled at ease among his children now thirsts for water. And he who once sat in the sun with the crumbs and dregs now was bloated with food. He reclined in the shade, his bowels overflowing. Cattle were left unattended to roam into strange pastures, and men ignored their marks and slew the beasts of their neighbors. No man owned anything. All right, next page. People records were cast forth and destroyed. No man knew who were slaves and who were masters. That's what's going to happen to the prison system. The people cried out to the Pharaoh in their distress. Pass a clip in this distress, but he stopped his ears and acted like a deaf man. That's what they doing when the cops shoot us down. There was those who spoke falsely before the Pharaoh and had gods hostile towards the land. Therefore the people cried out for the blood to appease it. But it was not these strange priests who put strife in the land ends instead of peace. For one was even of the household of Pharaoh that walked among the people unhampered. Dust and smoke clouds darkened the sky and colored the waters upon which they fell with a bloody hue. plague was throughout the land. The rivers were bloody, and the blood was everywhere. The water was vile, and men's stomachs shrank from drinking. Those who did drink from the river vomited it up, for it was polluted. The dust tore winds in the skin of men and beasts. In the glow of the destroyer, the earth was filled with redness. Vermin bred and filled the air, and the face of the earth was lonesomeness. Wild beast, it's not beast, it's beast, afflicted with torment under the lashing sand and ashes. Came out their lairs in the wastelands, and cave places stalked the abodes of men. All the tame beasts whimpered, and the land was filled with the cries of sheep and moans of cattle. Trees throughout the land were destroyed, and no herb or fillet was found. The face of the land was battered and devastated by hail of stones, which smashed down all that stood in the path of the torrent. They swept down in the hot showers, and strange flowing fire ran along the ground in their wake. The fish of the river died in the polluted waters. Worms, insects, reptiles sprung up from the earth in huge numbers. Great gusts of winds brought swarms of locusts, which covered the sky. As the destroyer flung itself through the heavens, it blew great gusts of cinders across the face of the land. The gloom of the long nights spread. The dark mantle of darkness which extinguished every ray of light. None knew when it was day or when it was night, for the sun cast no shadow. The darkness was not the clean blackness of night, but a thick darkness which the breath of men was stopped. In their throats men gasped in the hot cloud of vapor, which enveloped all the land and snuffed out all lamps and fires. Men were benumbed and laid moaning in their bed. None spoke to another or took food, for they were overwhelmed by despair. Ships were sucked away from their moorings and destroyed in great whirlpools. It was a time of undoing. Yeah, y'all hear this? That's the last page, and then I'll do the next 3 pages, or the pages that's left. Wow. The earth turned over as clay spun upon the potter's wheel. The whole land was filled with uproar from the thunder of the destroyer overhead and the cry of the people. There was a sound of moaning and lamentation on every side. The earth spewed up its dead. Corpses were cast out of their net resting places, and embalmed were revealed to the sight of all men. Pregnant women miscarried, and the seed of men was stopped. The craftsman left his task undone. The potter abandoned his wheel, and the carpenter his tools, and they departed to dwell in the marshes. All crafts were neglected, and the slaves lured the craftsmen away. The dues of the Pharaoh could not be collected, for there was nothing, neither wheat nor barley, goose nor fish. Rights of Pharaoh cannot be enforced, for the fields of grain and the pastures were destroyed. The highborn and the lowly prayed together, that heath might come to an end, and the turmoil of the thunder ceased to beat upon their ears. Terror of the companion of men by day, and horror their companion by night. Men lost their senses and became mad. They were distracted by frightfulness. On the great night of the destroyer's wrath, when its terror was at its height, there was a hail of rocks, and the earth heaved as pain rent her bowels. Gates, columns, walls were consumed by fire, and the statues of gods were overthrown and broken. People fled outside their dwellings in fear and were slain by the hail. Those who took shelter from the hail were swallowed by the earth, split open. The habitation of men collapsed upon those inside, and there was panic on every hand. But the slaves who lived in huts in reed lands at the place of pits were spared. The land burnt like tinder. A man watched upon his rooftop, and the heavens hurled wrath upon him, and he died. The land writhed under the wrath of the destroyer, and groaned with the agony of Egypt. It shook itself, and the temples and palaces of the nobles were thrown down from their foundations. The highborn ones perished in the midst of the ruins, and all the strength of the land was stricken. Even the great one, the firstborn of Pharaoh, died with the high one in the midst of the terror and fallen stones. The children of princes were cast out into the streets, and those who were not cast out died within their abodes. There were 9 days of darkness and upheaval, while the tempest raged such as never had been known before. When it passed away, brother buried brother throughout the land. Men rose up, those in authority, and fled from the cities to dwell in tents in the outlands. All right, so I'll finish up the last part, but it literally tells you right here that the Pharaoh's son was killed by the temple falling down from the stones. Because it says even the great one, the firstborn of Pharaoh, died with the highborn in the midst of the terror and fallen stones. So he died in the temple. The children of princes were cast out into the streets, and those who were not cast died within their abodes. So I tell you right there, Bo died in a temple. And instead of one day, there were 9 days. You hit it? 9 days. Not one day. It's 9 days of terror. So that's something you might want to listen to. That was interesting to me. Very scary. And I will do the other part tomorrow. And then I will keep searching for more description of the Most High, because this is the best account of what he looked like when he come in destruction form. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Shalom, and brothers and sisters, please stop praying in the name of our Father in the name of someone else. That is idolatry. David didn't do it. Ezekiel didn't do it. None of the prophets did it. So why are you? Yeah, think about that. Shalom.